breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
A warmer friendly hello. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN family and podcast. Got a tremendous podcast for you as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by Curtis Rogers. He does amazing work over at 710 Seattle Sports. He does Seattle Mariners pre- and post-game work. We're going to chat with him about what he's seen over the first week and a half of the MLB season. Have there been any surprises, any disappointments with regards to these teams? Going to get a little bit of a look at Sunday's matchup between the Cleveland Guardians and the Seattle Mariners and talk about the lay of the land in the AL West, as when we were doing the podcast, the Astros, they were at 3-5. They fell to 3-6 with their loss on Saturday. So we've got a nice chat coming up with Curtis in segment number 2, and we're also going to be chatting about how important it is for the AL West teams not named the Astros to pounce on the fact that the Astros are a little bit wounded right now with having guys like Jose Altuve currently out of the fold. Then in the final segment, going to give you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this MLB Sunday as we touch them all. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at GNN_41. Keep in mind, letters EM, the me does not matter. As per usual, please do send these into the timeline. The other way, that's fine, an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you are able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Really didn't get in any Twitter questions today, but we had a great day of baseball on Saturday. Let's take a look back at it, try to find some trends, and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
11-0, the Tampa Bay Rays were able to get the job done against the Oakland A's, as the A's, they fell to 2-6, and for the Tampa Bay Rays, it has been very impressive to take a look at them on offense. They are actually leading the league right now in home runs as they got a trio of them on Saturday. Randy Arozarena gets home run number 2 of the season. Manuel Margot is second, and Brandon Lau gets loud for his first home run of the campaign. For the Oakland A's, you had another rough performance from Shintaro Fujinami as he gave up 5 runs, 4 of which were earned. Gave up none of those home runs. Domingo Acevedo gave up 2 of those 3 as he surrenders 4 runs over the course of an inning. Pair of outs out of the bullpen from Sam Mull, scoreless. Churchill Familia gave you a scoreless inning, and then you had 2 runs, including a home run, given up by a backup catcher, Carlos Perez. That's the way that it went for the Oakland A's, as the A's could only muster 3 hits in this game, as well as for the Tampa Bay Rays. Jeffrey Springs, 7 scoreless innings. He punched out 7, and then you were able to get a pair of scoreless innings out of the young gun in Kevin Kelly. You also had a very dominant display from the Chicago White Sox, who it's been a rather up and down season for them, but 11-5, they're able to take it to Vinny Velo as Vince Velasquez got 8 outs, so 2 2/3 innings, gave up 5 runs, all of which were earned from there. Rob Zanarski gives up 3 runs in an inning. Chase DeYoung, he was able to stem the tide, gives up 1 run in 2 2/3 innings. Dwayne Underwood Jr., though, he gives up 2 runs in 2/3 of an inning before you have Jose Hernandez come in for 2 scoreless innings for the Pirates. Andrew McCutchen in the 9th inning goes deep off of Reynaldo Lopez for his first home run season, and for Mike Clevenger, I mean, it wasn't a thing of beauty, but he gets a win. 4 runs surrendered over the course of 5 1/3 innings. Lopez gives up that home run in the 9th inning, but Kendall Graveman, Aaron Bummer both give you an out of the bullpen, and hey, Joe Kelly, a scoreless outing, getting 2 outs out of the bullpen. As for the White Sox, they go 7 of 16 with men in scoring position. Was quite a high-scoring day in baseball on Saturday as overs ruled once again, and the Boston Red Sox, they were a big part of it. 14-5, they take down the Detroit Tigers as Tanner Houck, relatively solid start, gives up 2 runs in 5 innings for the Boston Red Sox. From there, Ryan Brazier gives up 3 runs, 2 of which were earned in his inning of work, but Zach Kelly, 2 scoreless innings, Caleb Ward, a scoreless inning, and the boom was supplied by the Boston Red Sox. Rafael Devers, home runs number 3 and 4 of the season. Adam Duvall, home run number 4 of the season, and then home run number 1 of the Boston Red Sox career of Ramiel Tapias. For the Detroit Tigers, it was a rough go of it for Joey Wentz. He got 5 outs, and then he went to the bullpen, getting 4 walks and just 1 hit along the way. He had no command whatsoever. From there, Garrett Hill has to come in for 3 1/3 innings, gives up 2 of those home runs, 3 runs in total in those 3 1/3 innings. Tyler Alexander came on in long relief, giving up 4 runs in 3 innings, and position player Zach McKinstry gave up a home run, giving up 2 runs in an inning. That was not great. The DK Nation write-up win streak ends at 6, still a 7-2 start to the season, so not going to cry over that, just going to look to be better for the one for Sunday. But the Astros, they lose to the Minnesota Twins by a count of 9-6. Well, I should have taken one over because this game was over in the top of the third inning. The total as you had a grand slam out of Yordan Alvarez in the third inning off of Joe Ryan, his third of the campaign. And for the Minnesota Twins, you had home run number 1 of the season out of Kyle Farmer, a 3-run shot off of Luis Garcia. As both starters struggled, Ryan was able to regroup. He went 6 innings, giving up 4 runs, including that grand slam. From there, Ode Lopez, Griffin Jacks, they both give you a scoreless inning, but then Giovanni Morin made things interesting in the 9th inning, giving up 2 runs in 2/3 of an inning, giving up a home run to Jeremy Pena. Second home run season, and for Garcia, only made it 4 innings, giving up 4 runs. From there, the Astros bullpen that was so good last year, shaky. Seth Martinez gives up a run in an inning. Phil Mate and Ryan Stanek both deliver a scoreless inning, but you had 4 runs in an inning given up by Ronel Blanco. That really was what doomed the Houston Astros in the spot, as you also had Brian Bruxton get his first home run of the season. That comes off of Mr. Blanco, as that was a very high-scoring affair. The Cincinnati Reds unable to hold on late as the Philadelphia Phillies played 3 runs in the 9th. This was a 1-0 game going into the top of the 9th inning, and shock, surprise, the Reds were unable to hold on 3-2 the final. Big storyline for me here, though, Nick Lodolo. 12 punch-outs in 7 scoreless innings for Cincinnati. Alexis Diaz, he gives up 3 runs in that 9th inning, though Ian Gabo was able to get it out of the bullpen. They were looking for a 6-out save out of Diaz. He did anything but deliver. And for the Cincinnati Reds, main form of offense for them, home run number 2 of the season out of Spencer Steer, as he went deep off of Bailey Falter, who actually really didn't falter too much. He gave up that solo home run, and that was it over the course of 5 innings. You did have a run and an inning surrender by Andrew Vasquez, who gets the win, as Andrew Bellotti, Sir Anthony Dominguez, Connor Brogdon, they're all able to supply a scoreless inning. I talk about fade pitchers all the time on this podcast, and I truly do think that Jose Urena needs to be towards the top of that fade pitcher list, as Washington Nationals, they take one from the Colorado Rockies by a count of 10-5. For the Nats, 19 hits in this game. You did have Jameer Candelario go deep off of Urena in the first inning, his second home run of the season. Alex Call was on call for his first home run of the season as Urena. He gets 8 outs. He gives up 6 runs, 4 of which were earned, including those 2 homers. Ty Block has to come in and stem the tie. 2 1/3 innings, giving up 2 runs to Nelson Lamet. He just doesn't look like himself in the bullpen. 2 runs surrendered in an inning. Brad Hand, a scoreless inning. Jake Bird, 2 scoreless innings. And Ryan McMahon was able to get a home run of his own off of one Mackenzie Gore, his second home run of the season. But for Gore, good start. 2 runs surrendered at 6 innings on the road. That's not too shabby. Carl Edwards Jr., Kyle Finnegan, both on the scoreless inning. Erasmo Ramirez gives up 3 runs in a third of an inning, but Hunter Harvey, pair of outs out of the bullpen. So the Nationals, they put up a 10 spot and they get it done. The St. Louis Cardinals blank the Milwaukee Brewers, as the Brewers' young bats have been relatively solid all season long, but they were silenced on Saturday, 6-0. St. Louis was able to get it done, as it was home run number 300 of the career of Nolan Arenado. His first of the campaign, that comes off of Eric Lauer, and Lauer gives one up to the young gun in Jordan Walker. Second home run season for Lauer, gives up all 6 runs over the course of 4 innings. If you had the under in this game, thank the Brewers bullpen. They held down the fort. Javi Guerra, Gus Varlin, both go 2 scoreless innings apiece. Joe Payamps, a scoreless inning, but for St. Louis, Jordan Montgomery, dominant. 9 punch-outs, 7 scoreless innings. Zach Thompson, Drew Verhagen, they were able to close the door with scoreless 8th and 9th innings. The Kansas City Royals, they got their bats ignited. Second time all year that they exceeded 4 runs, 6-5. They were able to take down the San Francisco Giants, as the Giants, they were up 4-0 going into the top of the 6th, and then the bullpen completely imploded, as Sean Manaea actually had a relatively good start in this one. Gives up 1 solo run over the course of 6 innings. Going deep for the Kansas City Royals, off of him was Bobby Witt Jr., his second of the season, and then Ross Stripling came on in long relief. Why they're trotting out their Stripling out of the bullpen, I have no idea, but Franmil Reyes and Salvador Perez both took him deep, both of their second home runs of the campaign, as Stripling gives up 4 runs, getting 5 outs out of the bullpen, allowing those 2 home runs. John Brebbia, a third of an inning scoreless before Camilo Doval gives up ultimately the game-winning run in the 9th inning. You did have Lamonte Wade Jr. get his first home run in the campaign. That comes off of Brady Singer, who he was singing the blues, giving up 5 runs over the course of 6 innings, but the bullpen had his back. Taylor Clark, Amir Garrett, Aroldis Chapman, all able to supply a scoreless inning to get the win. The Chicago Cubs, they were able to take it to the Walker Texas Rangers by a count of 10-3, as for Martin Perez, He goes 5 innings, giving up 3 runs, 2 of which were earned. He took the loss, but considering the wind was blowing out, not a terrible performance, especially considering what his teammates did, as he did allow a home run to Patrick Wisdom, his third home run of the campaign, and then Yan Gomes takes Taylor Hearn deep for his first home run of the season. For Hearn, he just has never proven to be a quality pitcher in the big leagues. At the starter capacity, in the bullpen, what have you, he gives up 4 runs while getting 5 outs, including that home run. Ian Kennedy gives up 2 runs, 1 of which was earned in a third of an inning. Brock Burke, pair of outs out of the bullpen, and Dane Dunning gives up an unearned run in a third of an inning as the Rangers stranded 10 men on base, and for the Chicago Cubs, Justin Steele was the man of steel, giving up 106 innings. Keegan Thompson, Michael Rucker both going inning, giving up a run, and Brad Boxberger a scoreless inning for Chicago. You had a nice display from the Seattle Mariners. We're going to talk about them a little bit more with our good friend Curtis Rogers over at 710 Seattle Sports. He does their pre- and post-game show hosting for the Mariners as they take down the Cleveland Guardians 3-2. The Cleveland Guardians had been, I believe it was 16-2 in Cal Quantrill's last 18 regular season starts. He allows 3 runs in 5 innings, so not his best performance. So bullpen at his back, Año de los Santos, Trevor Stephen, both give you a scoreless inning, and Eli Morgan, 2 scoreless innings, but Guardians left 12 men on base as Marco Gonzalez was under duress, but he wiggled out of it. 6 hits, 3 walks allowed in 5 2/3 innings, but just 1 run. Matthew Festa, he gives up a run in a third of an inning, but Penn Murphy, he and Gabe Spear combined for 2 scoreless innings, and Paul Sewald, scoreless inning to be able to get the save as the Mariners just continue to get 1-run wins. They've been doing this pretty much for 3 years running now, as he had a pair of 4-1 finals with the road team winning, with the Padres taking down the Braves and the Yankees taking down the Orioles. For the Yankees' 4-1 win, they were able to get a big home run out of Giancarlo Stanton, third home run season that comes off of Austin Voth after Cole Irvin, who was very good in Oakland, not so good on the road. He just had no command in this one, and when you're a guy that doesn't get a lot of strikeouts, which he actually had an uncharacteristic 5 strikeouts in that one, that was not great. 4 2/3 innings, 5 strikeouts, but 4 walks, 3 runs allowed. Voth gives up that home run to Giancarlo Stanton over the course of 2 innings. From there, Mike Baumann, Keegan Aiken, 1 1/3 innings, scoreless for Aiken. Baumann a scoreless inning, but not a lot doing for the Baltimore Orioles bats as Johnny Burrito, the surprise starter, 1 run surrendered over the course of 5 innings. Michael King, 2 scoreless innings. Clay Holmes, Wandy Peralta. They go into the 8th and 9th innings scoreless. And then for the Padres 4-1 win over the Atlanta Braves, it was behind a great start from Michael Wacha. 10 punch-outs and 6 scoreless innings. He did have a run given up in an inning by Luis Garcia. Hasn't looked like himself this season, but Steven Wilson, Josh Hader, they both supply a scoreless inning. And you had Juan Soto, who's had a relatively rough start to the year, hitting up just a $182. He got a second home run season. That comes off of Charlie Morton, who gave up 3 runs, 2 of which were earned in 5 innings. Seems like Morton is starting to get to the end of his career. He's up there in years. Only though, 2 scoreless innings. You had Kirby Yates give you a pair of outs out of the bullpen. Scoreless as Danny Young. He allowed 1 run in 1 1/3 innings. And then you did see the Arizona Diamondbacks completely take it to the LA Dodgers. 12-5 the final is. I remember doing a DK Nation write-up for a Noah Thor Syndergaard versus Zach Davies start. Both of these guys got rocked. So, fortunately, I took it the first time around and not this time. Davies, 5 runs surrendered in 4 1/3 innings, including a home run. For Syndergaard, 6 runs surrendered in 4 innings, including a pair of bombs, as the home run that was allowed by Davies came off the bat of James Outman, his 3rd home run of the campaign, and then Jason Hayward, his 3rd home run season. He takes Scott Magoo deep, as Magoo looks more like Dr. Magoo, giving up that home run in 1 1/3 innings. He did have Kyle Nelson be able to give you a scoreless inning. Kevin Ginkel, pair of outside the bullpen while giving up a run, and Luis Frias, 1 2/3 innings. He gave up a run, but for the Arizona Diamondbacks, their home runs came off the bat of Geraldo Perdomo, along with Ketel Marte of the Marte Parte. Both come off of Syndergaard. Both of them got their first home run season. Then the bullpen could not do their part from there. Alex Vesia gives up a run in an inning. Bruce Gradle, 2 runs surrendered in an inning. Gradle, in my opinion, a little bit overrated, but it's just me. And then Andre 3000 Jackson gives up 3 runs over the course of 2 innings to really put the nail in the coffin. The New York Metropolitans, they fall to the New York Mets on the road by a count of 5-2, as for the Marlins, the struggles of Trevor Rogers just continue. Punch-outs 5 and 4 2/3 innings, but gives up 3 runs, including a home run. For the Mets, it was Mr. Pete Alonso that took him deep. Already home run number 5 of the season for him, and Eduardo Escobar has really struggled this year. He gets his first home run season that comes off of Huskar Brazobin, who gave up 2 runs in 2/3 of an inning. You did have Matt Barnes, JT Jerkwa both supply a scoreless inning, and Andrew Nardi, 2/3 of an inning scoreless. Main form of offense for Miami, Jazz Chisholm. He was able to get his 2nd home run of the season, as that came off of Kodai Senga. Senga has come over from Japan, has looked very solid thus far. Gives up a 1 run in 6 innings. innings, so a pair of one-run performances against the Miami Marlins is a good way to be able to start out his career. Brooks Riley not out of the bullpen scoreless. He did have Drew Smith give up a run in a third inning, but John Curtis 1 1/3 inning scoreless, and David Robertson holding down that closer spot for Edwin Diaz while he is out this season. He was able to get a scoreless inning. And then the night wraps up with the LA Angels being able to get the job done against the Toronto Blue Jays by a count of 9-5. That Jose Barrios shows up once again, giving up 6 runs, 4 of which were earned over the course of 4 innings, probably because I wasn't in attendance, that the LA Angels were able to get things going as Mike Trout, for the second straight night, he's able to go deep. 3rd home run of the campaign, that was off of Adam Simber, who came in to relieve Mr. Barrios as he gave up that home run in an inning. You had Trevor Richards, Zach Pop, get things up popping with a scoreless inning apiece, and then Anthony Bass, he got taken deep as well, giving up 2 runs in his inning of work, being able to get that home run, Hunter Renfroe, his first as an Angel, and then the home run off of Barrios that comes off of Luis Rengifo's bat, his first of the season. Tyler Anderson, not the home debut that he was looking for, gives up 5 runs in 4 2/3 innings as he was taken deep 3 times. For the Toronto Blue Jays, Matt Chapman, George Springer both get their first home run season, and Bo Bichette, home run in back-to-back nights for him, his 3rd of the campaign, but Jaime Badilla, along with Ryan Tepera, Jose Cuyata, along with Carlos Aceves, on lend a scoreless inning, and Aaron Loop was able to get an out of the bullpen, so the Angels moved to 5-3, so been able to get a little bit of something going here early on, and early on, we have been noticing that the overs have been able to get a whole heck of a lot of something going on. 68 overs to 53 unders in Major League Baseball right now. That is a 56.2% clip to the over. We have seen a few pushes as well. I think that we've got 3 in total. We need to double check that, but we've also noticed that road teams have had a lot of success thus far. 66 and 60 straight up are away teams on the money line. If you're looking at taking a run and a half / laying a run and a half, away teams on the run line, hitting at a 57.1% clip, 72 and 54, and thus far, among teams that are laying a run and a half, so favorites, they have went 75 and 50 straight up. 12 of these, they have not been able to cover that run line of 1.5. So we have seen 12 favorites win by approximately 1 run. That's what we're seeing in Major League Baseball right now, and that's what we all got on Saturday. And coming up next on the Baseball Betting Show, let's take a little bit more of a look at the AL West. Let's dive in on the Seattle Mariners and get the takeaways of Curtis Rogers, who does amazing work as the Mariners pre- and post-game host, as to what we've seen in Major League Baseball this first week. Plus, that's on the flip side on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
Are you ready to become a winning sports bettor? Schedule a call with SBIA to find out how their service can make you a long-term winning player. They've developed an innovative algorithm that maximizes units return, and they are so confident in their system that they offer a money-back guarantee. Sign up by October 31st and get their MBA package at no cost until they reach 10 net units. They treat sports betting like a business. So if you want to learn how to make your sports betting dreams a reality, visit them at SBIA1.com and check them out on social media at SBIA Sports.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in, a little bit strange to say this, lovely Anaheim, California, for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man, Curtis Rogers. Does absolutely amazing work over at 710 Seattle Sports. He is the pre- and post-game host for the Seattle Mariners. Those that know my college basketball podcast, Coast to Coast Hoops. He's an ace on the hardwood as well over there at 710 Seattle Sports, taking a look at a little bit of everything. I know that Seattle Kraken hockey is going to be big relatively soon. He does a great work with the Seattle Seahawks. He does a lot of their podcast work, things like the Seattle Sports Night, Seattle Sports Saturday podcast, all podcasts that involve the Seattle Mariners. He does a great job there, and you're able to follow him on Twitter at A Kid From Kent. That is also his handle on Instagram. And Curtis, always great to have you aboard. Thank you.
Greg, always appreciate hopping on with you. And yeah, plenty to get to over this past a week into the baseball season. Plenty of storylines abound. And I don't know about you, but I've just been having a blast just cycling through all these games every single day. It has been just a blast to have baseball back in our lives, just getting back into that daily rhythm of things over the spring and summertime.
And I would be remiss not to mention this as well, as this uploads a happy birthday to our good friend Curtis Rogers as well. And hopefully it has been a nice birthday gift to get all these nice games the first week and a half of the season. And what have you made of the rule changes? Because a lot of people were making a lot out of the pitch clock, and certainly that has caused for some automatic balls from time to time. and an automatic strike or two as well. But I really feel like the biggest of the rule changes has been the shift, because I've been noticing in comparison to past Aprils, scoring seems to be way up along with batting averages, and I think it's no coincidence to the fact that we now have this shift out of baseball.
I think the rule changes have done exactly what they've intended to, with not as many unforeseen consequences, I think, as maybe people were warning us about prior to the season. You mentioned the banning of the shift, or at least the limiting of the shift, increasing offense. That has been a welcome sight to see. It was getting so tiresome seeing, a lefty come up in the lineup, and you just knew that there was going to be three infielders on that side of the field, and it was likely going to end in a ground out or a sharp line out into shallow right field. It's not entirely gone these days, but it's definitely limited, and I think that has really been a welcome sight to see. Also, a welcome sight to see is increased stolen base attempts. I think that had been a dying part of baseball over the last probably 20 or 30 years. Is the risk of stealing a base far outweighed the reward a lot of times, where guys weren't getting the game in motion, but now we're seeing it across Major League Baseball go way up over the season's first week. So that has been a welcome sight to see. I guess the only thing is you get some games that go by really fast. I was doing pre and post for the Mariners-Guardians game last Saturday, where it was Logan Gilbert and Aaron Civale on the mound. Both those guys were dealing. About an hour into the game, we were already in the sixth inning. So it's just like, holy cow, this is going by really quickly. But, a lot of this stuff, a lot of the unforeseen consequences don't really have anything to do with stuff that's on the field. I know people have complained about, I don't have enough time to get my concessions. I don't have enough time, get up from my seat and go get something, go do something. But I think the biggest thing Major League Baseball had to worry about in terms of watchability over the last few years was the on-field product. You don't have to worry about, the quality of concessions at a lot of these stadiums. It's bang for your buck at a lot of these parks. But baseball's biggest concern was the on-field product. They've addressed it, and I think the returns have been good so far.
It has been absolutely incredible. Being at that Angels game, I was able to have that game start up like 25, 30 minutes late and still got done by 10 o'clock for what was projected to be a 6:40 first pitch. So that was something that was very nice. I do agree with you there, as Curtis Rogers, who does a great job over at 710 Seattle Sports, is joining me on the podcast. And what have you made this year out of your team, the Seattle Mariners? Because we know that last year, really the hallmark of the Seattle Mariners was a combo of things, the good starting pitching along with that bullpen. And I do feel like the team is moving the line a little bit better this year. I think that was the intention of picking up Colton Wong. They were able to get a nice shrewd move with A.J. Pollock, obviously Teoscar Hernandez coming in. And I think that right now the Seattle Mariners have one of the more balanced lineups in the MLB between their hitting and their pitching as a result of their offseason moves.
Yeah, their line, especially the core of their lineup, has really delivered so far in the early going, despite their 3-5 record. Julio Rodriguez had a big home run on Friday. He's already hit 2. Ty France, his batting average is up over 300, kind of where you expect it to be when he's healthy. Last year, he had that elbow and wrist injury, suffered in the middle part of the season right before the All-Star break, and he just was never the same after that. So it's good to see him healthy, good to see him swinging the bat well. Eugenio Suarez is another guy who the batting average is there right now. He has really been, putting the ball in play. Hasn't had a home run yet this season, which is kind of odd considering he had over 30 a year ago. But, there's more than one way to score a run, and he's certainly been able to put the ball in play. Teoscar Hernandez off to a slower start. He did have the multi-home run game earlier this week. Him and A.J. Pollock both went yard twice in the same game. And in that game, the power that Teoscar Hernandez showed, both balls going over 400 feet, exit velocities of around like 109 miles per hour. It was kind of breathtaking to watch, a ball leave the yard as quickly as it did that night, especially late March, early April, where balls in Seattle are not flying out with regularity. I look at this lineup, though, and, Cal Raleigh's another guy that has been really good to start this season too, building off of a really good season he had a year ago. I do wonder where the offense is going to come at the back half of the lineup. I know that J.P. Crawford, is somebody that they have invested in, and they have turned down a lot of opportunities to add at the shortstop spot to, continue on with J.P. Crawford at short. His bat kind of comes and goes. So far, he's off to a pretty decent start this season. Hopefully that can continue so they can justify, having passed up in the last couple of off seasons, just a number of free agent shortstops. And the number was probably like 7 or 8 guys. You had Carlos Correa twice you could have gotten, but they said JP is our guy. So that's going to be interesting to watch. But right now, I think when everything is going for this Mariners offense, they can be dangerous. You just got to get more consistent contact, I think, out of the back half of the lineup, and things will be a lot better. As for the pitching staff, right now, dealing with that Robbie Ray injury, they were fortunate to just slot Chris Flexen in his spot. Flexen is a guy that has, made 50 starts over the last couple seasons, so he's a veteran arm. He's a guy that is, not new to starting pitching. So I think that's, a blessing in disguise for the Mariners rotation. But all in all, I think in this AL West, it is so early to, say the start for a lot of these teams is real. I think this Mariners team, if they can get everything going, if they can get everything healthy right now, I think they have a very real shot at getting back to the postseason.
And I'm so glad that you mentioned that it is relatively early, but we have noticed that the Astros got off to a little bit of a bumpy start entering into Saturday. They start out 3-5, and typically when it comes to this time of year, we do say that it's early. Teams are just trying to figure themselves out, but how critical is it for anyone trying to track down the Houston Astros to have a good start to the year? Because we know that the Astros are probably as far away from 100% right now as they will be all year with the injury to Jose Altuve. They still don't have Michael Brantley back in the fold, and typically we say, teams are going to round into form in like July, August, those summer months, but I do feel like for a lot of these AL West teams not named Houston, right now is the time for them to be able to pounce.
Absolutely, because like you said, Houston's not going to be any more wounded than they are right now. The more you build up this time of season, the easier you have made it on yourself in the second half of the season, the less hole you have to dig yourself out of. So that is why the start of the season is so vitally important. Look at Tampa, for example. They're 7-0 to start this season. They have been a juggernaut to start this year. Those 7 wins are banked. You can't take that away from them. If you had them, let's say, pegged at about 93 wins this season, that means they just have to play at an 86-win pace the rest of the year in order to get to those 93 wins. Like, it makes it so much easier to reach those goals that you had prior to the season. That's why these games are very important. I mean, yes, you can say, we can't really make a lot of conclusions after, 7 or 8 games so far. True. But also you're helping yourself out right now by winning all these games and making it a lot easier on yourself the rest of the way. Looking at the AL West, Houston right now, 3-5. They're tied with the Mariners for third place in that division. You have the Rangers and Angels at top right now at 4-3. So they're only a game and a half up on the Astros and Mariners right now. But if you're the Rangers and you're the Angels, two teams that have kind of pinpointed this season as a year where they are not going to sit back any longer, they are going to make concerted efforts to get a winning ball club. This is a huge opportunity for them to take advantage of Houston getting off to a slow start and also the Mariners getting off to a slow start. So if you're Texas and LA, I mean, you're looking at it right now and we have a tremendous opportunity to help ourselves out. Now, last year, if you remember, Greg, the Angels got off to a tremendous start. They were one of the best teams in baseball.
They were 10 games above 500 at one point.
Exactly. They were one of the best teams in baseball through about the season's first month and a half. And then it absolutely fell apart on them, completely bottomed out the rest of the way. So it can go that way as well. But you got to help yourself out this early on in the season.
It never hurts to get off to a nice start to the season. How teams utilize that start, you just mentioned the LA Angels. That is one thing, but I certainly do think that it would be beneficial for a lot of these AL West teams to be able to do so. I was at that Angels game. They were up 3-1 going into the 7th inning, and shock, surprise, the bullpen was not able to hold up. Where have I seen this before? It's joining me on the podcast. We do have Curtis Rogers. He does great work over at 710 Seattle Sports. Just a little bit different viewing it in person because you know how bad it is when you watch on TV, but when you see it in person, it's just all the more hilarious. But with that said, Curtis, just taking a look at the first week plus of the season, have there been a few teams that you've been really impressed/unimpressed by to begin the season? Because you mentioned the Tampa Bay Rays, a 7-0 start from them. I thought they were once again going to be relatively rock solid, but this has been a tremendous start to the year for them. I mentioned the Astros, a little bit of a slow start, but I attribute a lot of that to injuries. But any teams really stand out through the first week and a half of the season, or even just a few specific players?
Well, in the National League, I look at the Phillies, and I mean, they had such a tremendous run late in the year last year to get to the World Series, and they looked like they were, going to gear up for another run, and they have not been that to start this season. 2-5 out of the gate, a minus 21 run differential already. That was due in large part to that series against Texas, where they got blasted the first 2 games of the year. Look at this Phillies team, and I kind of wonder what are they going to be without Rhys Hoskins and without Bryce Harper, 2 huge guys in that lineup. I know they're going to get Harper back at some point this season, probably May or June, like late May, early June, I think is what the target is right now. But before that, you got to be able to keep things afloat, or else Bryce Harper's not going to be able to be enough to get you back to the postseason. That is a team right now that I'm looking at kind of wondering, especially after the huge addition of Trey Turner this offseason, like that is a move that signals to the rest of Major League Baseball, like, yeah, we're not only are we going to try and remain contenders, like, try and stick around for as long as possible. And then another team that has really captured my attention, Greg, is a team that is very close to you, and that'd be the Milwaukee Brewers. Off to the 6-1 start and a plus 26 run differential to start this season. There was a trade they made earlier, there was a trade they made in the offseason between your Brewers and the Mariners out here, and that involved Jesse Winker getting moved to the Brewers. He's already driven in 7 runs this season. He is batting over 300. It kind of feels like he's the Jesse Winker that the Mariners had hoped they were going to get. But also, how about Brian Anderson? Absolutely he's like hitting like Barry Bonds right now. He's got a batting average of 500, a slugging percentage of 1,000, 3 home runs, 10 runs driven in. I mean, what more could you want from a guy to start the season? Like, what do you do with a guy like that? Facing him 3 or 4 times a night. Like, that is an absurd start to the season that he is off to, and just a tremendous presence in that lineup. Those 2 guys right now have been big contributors to the Brewers' success offensively. And then also Garrett Mitchell with the big walk-off home run the other day, 3 home runs. He's got an OPS at 1218 right now. His post-game interview the other day, though, where he was like, I play better when my wife isn't in the stands. I don't know if that was the brightest move on his part, but look, they got the win, and I guess you can kind of say whatever you want when you hit a walk-off home run.
Having just gone through my first anniversary, I will always say to Mr. Mitchell, do everything humanly possible to not land yourself in the doghouse. Your teammates will thank you. Your wife will thank you. The entire family will thank you. So there is that advice that I will give on this podcast. And if you take anything away from this podcast today, it is that, as we know of Curtis Rogers, who does great work over at 710 Seattle Sports Show to be on the podcast. So that when it comes to the game that we are going to be seeing on Sunday, it is going to be George Kirby against Zach Plesac. And George, he had a little bit of a rough start to the season, gives up 4 runs in 4 1/3 innings against the LA Angels. And by comparison, it was actually a very good start compared to the man he's going up against, Zach Plesac. Recognize the team got the win, but he gave up 6 runs in an inning against the Oakland A's. And when you're giving up double the amount of runs as you pitch innings against the Oakland A's in Oakland, you know it's not going well for you. What are your expectations for this game on Sunday? Because I do think that Kirby is going to be able to bounce back. That was a relatively rough performance against the Angels, but Angels lineup, I can tell you right now, relatively solid. Meanwhile, for Plesac, he just has never really been able to figure it out, even though the command is there for him.
Yeah, looking at this pitching matchup, George Kirby last year got off to a relatively slow start after making his Major League debut. He did have that really nice start in his debut. I think he went 6 shutout innings against the Tampa Bay Rays in that one. But then for about 3 or 4 weeks, just kind of labored along. But then something clicked, and by the end of the season, he was probably the Mariners' second best starting pitcher behind Luis Castillo. I think this may be a little bit more to that because last year also Kirby got beat out for the final rotation spot by Matt Brash, if you remember, out of spring training. Kirby spent the first month of the season in Double-A Arkansas. So maybe Kirby is a guy that it takes him a while to get ramped up, but when he does get ramped up, he's really good. You mentioned Zach Plesac. Boy, his ERA stands at a crisp 54 right now and a whip of 8. That's really bad, but I mean, he does have some really good stuff. We've seen flashes from him throughout the course of his career. Unfortunately, like you said, over the last couple seasons, run an ERA near 4.5. Last year, I know, win-loss record doesn't tell the whole story of a pitcher, but he's 3-12. And, that means he just is not in position. He wasn't putting his team in position to win the game quite often last year. I think Zach Plesac right now is the bigger wild card going into this one. I think George Kirby is the better pitcher. He's the better stuff of the two. But it is a game in Cleveland. Cleveland is a really good ball club. The Mariners, though, did win game one of the series thanks to a nice comeback. They were down 3-0, scored 5 unanswered for the win in game one. I think George Kirby is capable of having a better day than Zach Plesac is out on the mound. I think it's going to be a low-scoring ball game just because the Mariners' bats in cold weather just have not woken up yet this season. And I think there are going to be times where they kind of play down to their opponent in a way where, Zach Plesac he's not Shane Bieber. He's not Tristan McKenzie. He's not, a top of the rotation arm for Cleveland. But, he throws a lot of innings in his career, at least the last couple of years, up over 130 last year, 142 the year prior to that. So that Sunday game between Plesac and Kirby might be a little lower scoring than I think people might anticipate just because of how good Kirby can be and kind of the Mariners offense right now still needing to contribute 1 through 9, maybe not just 1 through 6 right now.
Yep, and with both of these bullpens as well, that even if one of these starters gets us off to a relatively slow start, they are both going to be able to pick up the slack as well. And every single time this man joins this podcast, any slack that is left behind by me, he picks it up. Curtis, you do amazing work over at 710 Seattle Sports. You do an incredible job taking a look at the game of baseball. And like I mentioned, you cover a little bit of everything out there in the great city of Seattle, but I know that you're an ace when it comes to Mariners coverage. So let the good people at home know it's all tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, you can follow along on Twitter at A Kid From Kent, Instagram as well. And we have a new episode of Mariners Extra Innings. It was released on Thursday of this last week. Special guest Jordan Schusterman of Fox Sports and Cespedes Family Barbecue. He joined me to talk some Mariners, to talk some of the bigger stories in baseball too, including Shohei Ohtani's impending free agency, which is on the mind of everybody following baseball this season. So I had to get his thoughts on that. So that is available wherever it is you get your podcasts and also at seattlesports.com.
And Curtis does absolutely amazing work taking a look at the great game of baseball. Highly recommend you take a look at all of his work with Seattle Mariners coverage because he does an incredible job there. And every single time he joins this podcast, does an amazing job. So big thanks to Curtis for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast. They give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this MLB Sunday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to get Curtis Rogers aboard. Does amazing work over at 710 Seattle Sports, doing an amazing job taking a look at everything baseball. He is the Mariners pre- and post-game host, and if you're looking for just good sports information out there in the Pacific Northwest area, whether that be with the Seattle Kraken, Seahawks, list goes on and on. I highly recommend that you follow at A Kid From Kent on Twitter and Instagram. He's one of the best of the business. Always enjoy him coming on, and he joined me a lot on the College Basketball Podcast as well. So big thanks to our good friend Curtis for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this MLB Sunday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
You note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter feed at GNRS41. We're going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is very easy. Goes National League games first, then the American League games, and any intra-league games. Those are going to be at the bottom, so that'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. So without further ado, let's dive in on 951, 952 on the betting board. The Cincinnati Reds, yes, we are on to Cincinnati. They're going to be on the road playing against the Philadelphia Phillies, as Taijuan Walker is going to be going for the Phils, and Connor Overton is on the bump for the Reds. And total on this game is 8.5. Over is any between minus 115 at even money. The under is any between minus 105 and minus 120. Phillies, they're pretty much between minus 175 and minus 180 across the board, anywhere between plus 152 and plus 162 is your number on the Reds. Taking a look at the run line, I'm seeing this mostly at plus 110 on the Phillies, laying a run and a half. I was willing to take it at a plus 108 or greater, and that's where I am going to be riding with this. Connor Overton has had a little bit of an issue this season. First start of the campaign, gives up 5 runs over the course of 4 innings, and he had a nice 2022, but it was a very small sample size of 33 total innings. He had a 2.73 ERA, .09 road ERA, but once again, 24 and 2/3 innings. A little bit of that might have been the competition that he faced, as half the teams that he faced were the Colorado Rockies, Chicago Cubs, and Pittsburgh Pirates last season. So I just don't stick too much into those numbers. He's a okay strikeout guy, but sometimes can get a little bit wild with regards to the walks as well from watching him from afar at the minor league level. And I do think that the Phillies are going to be able to get some power going. You've got Kyle Schwarber, he's got a pair of home runs at north of 45 last season, and then a pair of guys in Trey Turner and Bryson Stott, with a combined 25 hits between the two of them thus far this season. Alec Bohm has been able to move the line now. They are dealing with a few injuries, as Derek Hall has been a little bit banged up. That's not fun. Obviously, you've got the fold for this team, Bryce Harper, along with Rhys Hoskins. And then for the Cincinnati Reds, there's just not a lot of firepower with this offense. First 2 games of the series, a combined 4 runs out of them. I do like that they've got back their catcher, Tyler Stevenson, who was having a really nice year before he got injured last year, but Will Myers has not been able to find it at the plate this year. TJ Friedel, Jake Fraley, they hit between 10 and 12 home runs, but that's part of it too. The Reds did not return a single player that had north of 12 home runs last year. They have gotten a trio of home runs out of Jason Vossler to begin the campaign, but this is just not really a very good offense. I do actually like the bullpen of the Cincinnati Reds. Fernando Cruz, Alexis Diaz, both of these guys had a sub-2 ERA last season. Once you get past them, guys like Kevin Harrigan, it could be a little bit more of a roll of the dice, but they're not terrible. Meanwhile, for the Philadelphia Phillies, was a little bit rough going for guys like Sir Anthony Dominguez, Jose Alvarado, and company in the bullpen to begin the season, but it does seem like things are getting on the straight and narrow. Gregory Soto, I think, will be a net positive for the team in the bullpen coming over from the Detroit Tigers. Had a few rough goes of it to begin the season, but looks like he's rounding into form. Don't have any faith whatsoever in Craig Kimbrell, but I do think that they're going to avoid utilizing him in this spot. So I did set the Phillies on the money line at a minus 172, but we'll take that plus 110 run line with them. And I did set my total at 8.2 because I do think that you've got Taijuan Walker who's going to be able to give a better start than he did first time around against the Yankees. He does give up 4 runs in 4 1/3 innings, and legitimately has not had the world's greatest success against the New York Yankees. They take a look at him last season, and his home runs per 9 rate was 0.9. Did a solid job of being able to limit the walks to fewer than 2.5 per 9 innings when he was away from New York because he was on the Mets last season. He was able to post up a 3.54 ERA, giving up just under a home run per 9 innings. I do think that he's going to do a nice job of stymieing what is not such a great Reds lineup. So looking at the 8.5 under and looking at the Phillies on the run line, 953, 954 on the betting board. The Miami Marlins at third face-off against the New York Mets. Carlos Cookie Carrasco is going to be on the bump for the Mets. Braxton Garrett is on the bump for Miami. 8 is the total. Over and under are both at minus 110. Quite a range here with the Mets money lines are between minus 145 and minus 165, and between plus 134 and plus 140, your number on Miami. And with the Mets, I set them minus 163 on the money line. It's all about money line or run line with them because I am seeing currently a plus 145 on the run line with them, also seeing a plus 130. I personally am going to be looking at the run line in this ordeal with the Mets. I do like actually what Braxton Garrett is able to provide. He gave up 3 runs in his first appearance against the New York Mets. He was not starting in that game. He got called on because I believe that was the game that Johnny Cueto got hurt. I just tossed that out because it's a very strange circumstance last season. 3.58 ERA for Mr. Garrett, giving up about 2.5 walks per 9 innings, just under a home run per 9, but home and road splits, very demonstrative. 2.63 home ERA, 4.40 ERA on the road, giving up right around 1.2 home runs per 9 innings away from home. And Carlos Carrasco, he was so much better in New York last year than he was on the road. 3.56 home ERA, 4.57 ERA on the road, giving up 0.8 home runs, 2.9 walks per 9 innings when he was at home. Now, he does allow opponents to hit about a 270 off of him, and this is a Marlins lineup that it is really bereft of power, but you do have guys that are able to move the line. Luis Arias, 14 of 30 to begin the season, hit above 300 with the Minnesota Twins last season. I like the pickup of Gene Segura, but then you get down to guys like John Birdie, Nick Fortes, Jesus Sanchez. These guys have really been struggling. Ode Soler has already been able to supply a trio of homers, and he did have 46 home runs one season while he was with the Kansas City Royals, but does not compare with the New York Mets. Pete Alonso already has 5 jacks this season. You know that you're going to be seeing someone like a Mark Canha sitting below 200, Eduardo Escobar hitting below 100 to get things going. Now, Escobar has not been too terrific in recent years, but he's better than this. Jeff McNeil starting to round into form as well. And for the Mets, I do like their bullpen a little bit more. AJ Puck is relatively solid for that Miami Marlins bullpen. They also do bring in JT Turcotte, but at the same time, you're having guys like Tanner Scott not get the job done. Meanwhile, Brooks Raley, I felt like was a good acquisition. Even without Alexis Diaz, you still have a good closer in David Robertson, who's proven to be able to get the job done. Drew Smith last year was able to do a solid job in some relatively high leverage spots as well. He had about a 3.33 ERA, so I do think that the Mets going to be able to go out there, get the job done with Garrett. A little bit of fear of him on the road. Carlos Carrasco, don't really trust him away from New York, but I trust him in New York. So as a result, I'm going to be taking a look at this Mets run line. It did set my total at an 8.3. I do think that the Marlins are going to be able to scratch across a few runs. I don't think that it's going to be anything monstrous or anything like that, but I do think that they are able to get a few runs across, playing a little bit of small ball, and I do think that the Mets are going to be able to get it done in this ordeal. Looking at the run line of the Mets, taking the total over as well, 955, 956 on the betting board. The St. Louis Cardinals hit the road face-off against the Milwaukee Brewers. Freddie Peralta is going to be going for the Crew, and Jake Woodford is on the pump for St. Louis. 9 is the total. Over is anywhere between even money and minus 115. The under is anywhere between minus 120 and minus 105 with the Brew Crew. They're between minus 138 and minus 145 on the money line. Between plus 120 and plus 133 is your number on the St. Louis Cardinals. And for the Cardinals, I would need a plus 143 to be able to take a shot here. I set the Brewers minus 143 on the money line, so I am going to be willing to lay it. Really don't want to go too far into the run line with the Brewers. You're finding them at about a plus 140 to a plus 145 with that run line, and I don't see as big of an edge with that run line as compared to the money line. I do think that Freddie Peralta going to be able to turn a nice start in this ordeal. First start of the season, 7 strikeouts in 6 innings. He's been dealing with injuries the last 2 or so years, and it does look like he's getting back to full-on 100%. You even take a look at what he did last year at a 3.58 ERA. That just wasn't him, as he was a little bit banged up. You go back to that 2021 campaign, and he had a 2.88 home ERA. His strikeouts per 9 rate that season was north of 11. He goes up against someone in Jake Woodford that he got shelled his first time out, giving up 6 runs in 4 1/3 innings. And last year, Woodford was amazing. 2.23 ERA, mostly in a long relief role. 27 total appearances, one of which was starts, 48 1/3 innings. But this is not someone that's going to go out there, light up the radar gun or anything like that. Does a good job of being able to keep the walks down. He only gave up about 2 walks per 9 innings last season, which you do like to see, and he does get backed up by a very good lineup. We saw Nolan Arenado go deep yesterday. That was home run number 300 for him. Paul Goldschmidt, he was just all sorts of incredible last year with the 400 on base or with the 30 home runs, and this young outfield is very good at being able to put bat to ball. Tyler O'Neill, when you get him back, Lars Nootbaar, he's currently on the injured list. Alec Burleson, these are guys that are very solid, along with their young 20-year-old in Jordan Walker. But for the Brewers, I do have trepidations that this team is going to continue to hit the way that they have. Brian Anderson is someone that I know our good friend Curtis Rogers brought up. He's been off to a hot start. I don't know how long lasting that's going to be. Joey Weimer is the same way, but you do know that this team has some power in the lineup. Rowdy Tellez was able to 35 home runs last season. Luke Voigt actually led all of baseball in home runs in 2020. These are guys that don't do a great job of moving the line, and for Voigt, he just hasn't been able to find that same magic from a few seasons ago. Christian Yelich certainly has had a little bit of a tough time of it. And for the Brewers, they did have to burn up quite a bit of their bullpen yesterday, as Eric Lauer gave you a pretty big piece of poop start. But that's that. Joel Payamps, Hobie Milner, they're relatively solid in the bullpen, being able to get to Devin Williams, who's very good at the closer spot. Even without Josh Hader, they still have a good closer. But man, they could use both of those guys. Meanwhile, for the Cardinals, you have seen Ryan Helsley really start to act up since the back half of the season last year. Jordan Hicks has become unreliable for the team. I like Zach Thompson as a little bit of a long guy, along with Andre Palante, though, but I do think that the Milwaukee Brewers are going to be able to do a solid job getting to Jake Woodford. I do think that Woodford is going to struggle a little bit, and I like the peak form of Freddie Peralta right now, which is a big reason why I do like the Brewers on the money line in this ordeal, and I did set my total at an 8.1, so getting what we've got right now to 9, I think that it is a little bit too high. I think that Woodford gives up some runs, but I do think that there's going to be some regression with this Brewers lineup, and I do think that Peralta goes out there and dominates, especially in April in the Midwest. So going to be taking a look at the under in this spot, and I'm willing to take the Brewers on the money line, 957, 958 on the betting board. It is the Colorado Colorado Rockies. They play the Washington Nationals. Chad Kuhl, Mr. Cool, for the Nats, and Ryan Feltner is on the bump for Colorado. Colorado's between a minus 142 and minus 145 favorite. Between plus 120 and plus 132 is your number on Washington. 11.5 is the total. Overs between minus 110 and minus 125. Meanwhile, the under is a between plus 105 and minus 110. And with the Colorado Rockies, I was only willing to lay up to a minus 128 with them. Anything north of a plus 129, that is my take point on the Washington Nationals, and we have actually reached that. With Chad Kuhl, he is going to be facing off against his former team, but I actually think that this is a little bit of an advantage because he actually knows how to pitch at Coors Field, unlike many of the pitchers that the Rockies are going to be seeing this year when they are at home. With Chad Kuhl, he certainly did have his struggles while he was with the Colorado Rockies last season. 5.04 home ERA, 6.32 road ERA. Far from terrific. Gave up 25 home runs in 137 innings last season overall. That was darn near 2 home runs per 9 innings. But with the Washington Nationals, they are actually backed up by a relatively okay bullpen. I know that when they were facing off against the Tampa Bay Rays, Kyle Finnegan had a really rough go of it in one of those games with Carl Edwards Jr., Rasmo Ramirez, Mason Thompson. These guys are able to come in and hold down the fort. And the Colorado Rockies are a little bit improved with their bullpen as well. They're currently without Daniel Bard, their main closer, but Pierce Johnson, Brad Hand, I feel like we're good acquisitions. Brent Suter, he was always relatively solid with the Milwaukee Brewers. Never a guy that would just absolutely tear it up, but an ERA of a 3.78 or lower in all but one of his years with Milwaukee. And for the Colorado Rockies, they have been able to get some offense going recently. We saw that just take hold with regards to their game on Friday as both teams were able to get things going there. And for the Colorado Rockies, just big that you've got Chris Bryant back in the fold. He entered into yesterday hitting north of a 350. They are kicking the tires on Mike Moustakas. We shall see what happens there. But Charlie Blackmon proven to be able to move the line. CJ Cron, he was able to supply the team with 29 home runs last season. 22 of them came at home. And for the Washington Nationals, they have been able to get Lane Thomas to be able to provide some good at-bats. He and Victor Robles both hitting above a 325. Joey Meneses has not been able to recapture the magic that he had last season. They're kicking the tires on Michael Chavis. I remember he had a lot of promise with the Boston Red Sox. Has become a little bit of a cast-off, but I do think that they are going to be able to get in this spot some runs because you take a look at what you're able to get out of Ryan Feltner, and it's been a big, giant nothing burger all throughout his career. Last year, posted up a 5.83 ERA, which was a 5.95 at home. This despite the fact that he really didn't give up a lot of bombs when he was in Coors Field. He gave up 1.1 home runs per 9 innings, but he just doesn't get a lot of swings and misses. His strikeouts per 9 rate last year was a little bit south of 8. He gives up over 3.5 walks per 9 innings. He just is a big, giant work in progress that I don't know if he's going to be able to get there. Meanwhile, Chad Kuhl, he is a little bit more of a veteran. He knows what to do when he gets into adverse spots. So being able to get a plus 130 or greater, I'm going to be taking a look at the Washington Nationals. I did set my total a little bit north of 11.5. I set it at 11.8. The Nationals, not necessarily too trustworthy with their bullpen. Neither are the Colorado Rockies. Neither are the starters necessarily so great. And at elevation on a Sunday, I do think that the ball is going to be flying. So taking a look at the over in this spot, and I'm going to be taking a look at the Nationals getting a plus 129 or greater. 959, 960 on the betting board. It is the LA Dodgers. They hit the road. They're facing off against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Ryan Nelson is going to be going for the Sinks, and Michael Grove is on the bump for the Dodgers. And the Dodgers, between minus 130, minus 140 favorites, between plus 115 and plus 122 is your number on Arizona. 9.5 to 10 is your total on the 9.5. Over is minus 115. The under is minus 105 on the 10. The under is minus 115, and the over is minus 105. Made the Dodgers a minus 153 favorite, so I'm going to be willing to lay it. Big thing for me is that I really don't have any faith in Ryan Nelson. I recognize that Michael Grove has quite a way to be able to go in order to become a really functional major league pitcher, but I do take a look at Ryan Nelson, and I think that his numbers got a little bit warped by the fact that he came up to the big leagues. He had 3 starts, and he looked amazing in those 3 starts, giving up 4 runs, 3 of which were earned over the course of 18 and a third innings for a $1.47 ERA. You take a look at him in spring training, 5.85 ERA. You take a look at him at the minor league level last year, 5.43 ERA. I recognize that that's in the PCL, a little bit of a juice ball league, but guy just really doesn't impress me, and I do think that Michael Grove is going to be able to come in and is going to be able to hold down the fort after both of these teams got plenty of runs yesterday, as in his first start of the year, Grove did give up 3 runs over the course of 4 innings, so not necessarily what you want to see there, but with Michael Grove, I do think that he's going to do a solid job of being able to limit a little bit more of the hard contact, which was really his main bugaboo last year. Gave up about 1.9 home runs per 9 innings. His walks per 9 right around 3. He's a young guy that's able to throw a relatively solid fastball. I do think that his strikeout numbers are going to go up. 4 strikeouts in 4 innings in his first time out, but he does face against an Arizona Diamondbacks team that got less than a home run per game at home last season, one of the worst teams at being able to go deep at home a season ago. Now they were able to get things going yesterday, and you do have a pair of guys in Corbin Carroll and Evan Longoria that already have a pair of home runs to begin the season. On Longoria and limited at bats has looked very solid, but Guitel Marte, Lourdes Gurriel, Christian Walker, Kyle Lewis, all hitting below a 220 entering into the day yesterday. These guys have been off to relatively slow starts. Walker is able to give you 30-plus home runs, but Arizona in recent years has been a little bit more of a pitcher-friendly ballpark, and for the LA Dodgers, they do also back up Michael Grove with a significantly better bullpen, as they were number 1 in the National League in terms of bullpen ERA last season, with the likes of Alex Vesia, Caleb Ferguson, Yancy Almonte, Evan Phillips, all supplying a sub-3.3 ERA, so all you need is really 4 to 5 good innings out of Michael Grove, and then the guys from there are able to hold down the fort. Meanwhile, the Arizona Diamondbacks, they do pick up Miguel Castro and Andrew Chafin to help out that bullpen, but not having Joe Mantiply hurts this team. Gavin Ginkel, he's been relatively okay, but with the LA Dodgers, I do think that they're going to be able to scratch across quite a few runs. I like what I've seen early on in the season out of both Trace Thompson and Will Smith entering into yesterday with a combined 6 home runs between the two of them. Thompson a little bit more of a situational hitter, but he's been able to do a good job. The young center fielder and James Outman, he has been very hard to get out, man. He has been very good for this bunch. You've got Freddie Freeman, who's doing a good job of moving the line. Hasn't had as much power since coming over with the LA Dodgers, but he's been able to do a good job hitting above a 300 in Dodger Blue. Mookie Betts, we all know his skill set. He's able to give you 30-plus home runs. He's able to hit 275-plus. Max Muncy, though, it's been a little bit rough for him. I do think that the Dodgers are going to do a nice job of holding down the fort, and I do think that this is a little bit too demonstrative of a total. I set my total at 9.4. I do think that Nelson is going to give up a few runs, but it's an improved Arizona Diamondbacks bullpen. I think that Grove is going to do just enough to be able to get his bullpen a chance to be able to really lock things down. And with the LA Dodgers, we notice this with them. They either win by multiple runs or they lose outright. As a result, I set my money line at a minus 153, but I also want to lay up to a minus 105 on the run line of the Dodgers. I'm currently seeing that Dodgers run line right around a plus 120. I'm going to take that plus price with the LA Dodgers. I do think that they're going to be able to generate enough offense to be able to win this game by multiple runs, hold down an Arizona Diamondbacks lineup that got going yesterday, but they've had some struggles early on during the season. I do think that they are going to continue against Grove and company. So I'm going to be willing to take the run line of the Dodgers, set my total at 9.4. So you're at a 9.5/10, looking at the under as well. 961, 962 on the betting board. The San Diego Padres hit the road to face off against the Atlanta Braves. The Dodd father in Dylan Dodd going for the Atlanta Braves, and Seth Lugo is on the bump for the Padres. Padres are between even money at minus 110 as a slight underdog. Meanwhile, with the Atlanta Braves, find the money between minus 110 and minus 115 with your total 9. The over and the under are between minus 105 and minus 115. I made the Dodd father a minus 142 favorite. I'm going to be willing to lay it. Really like the way that he was able to throw in spring training. Came up in the Atlanta Braves minor league system very quickly. He's got good swing and miss stuff. Keeps the ball in the yard very well. Less than 0.6 home runs per 9 innings surrendered at the minor league level last year. And in the first start of the season they had against the St. Louis Cardinals, did scatter some hits. 6 hits in 5 innings, but allowed just 1 run. I like his poise. I do think that he's going to be giving up a few more runs if he continues to give up that much contact, but by and large, a good start there. And for Seth Lugo, he went 7 innings, giving up 1 run in his first start of the season. He is most notably known as a reliever for the New York Mets, but he is a little bit of a starter by trade. He was oftentimes a little bit more of a long guy for the Mets. I do think that it's going to take him a little bit longer to be able to make that switch over to becoming a full-time starter. I do think that he was the beneficiary of facing off against Colorado Rockies at home in his first start, but like what I saw there, this is a Sunday night baseball game, so it is going to be a little bit cooler than you'd be finding during the daytime. And out there in the great state of Georgia, those of you guys taking a look at the Masters, you know that it's not necessarily great weather, but I do think that the Padres, they're going to be able to scratch across a few runs. With Xander Bogaerts coming into the fold, he has been incredible for this team, but other than Xander Bogaerts, among guys with at least 13 at-bats, you've really only got one other guy hitting above a 250. That'd be Manny Machado. You know that he is always going to be able to hit. Trent Grisham has given you a pair of bombs, but since the beginning part of last year, hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. Awesome Kim has come along with the bat. Jose Azucar is able to move the line as well, but Juan Soto's not really been himself. Was expecting a little bit more from Austin Nola at the catcher spot as well. And for the Atlanta Braves, this team led the National League in home runs last season. You've got Ronald Acuna Jr., year number 2 off of that ACL injury. He's looking like his normal self once again, as he, Orlando Arcia, Matt Olson, Austin Riley, Travis d'Arnaud, all were hitting above a 310 going into yesterday's game. Olson had a great spring training, 3 home runs in the first 8 games of the season. He has been rock solid for this team. Marcell Ozuna, he's only got 2 hits this season, but both have flown over the fence. I do think that the Atlanta Braves have the bullpen advantage as well. They've got guys that are a little bit older in the bullpen, like AJ Minter, Joey Jimenez, Jesse Chavez, but these guys are able to close the door. Meanwhile, for the San Diego Padres, love what you're able to get out of Josh Hader, but Luis Garcia has been not so terrific to begin the season. Domingo Tapia is someone that you really have no faith in whatsoever. I actually do think that Steven Wilson is going to be able to develop at a 3.06 ERA last season. I like his upside above Chrisman is able to give you some length, but I do think that both of these pitchers are going to be able to land a relatively solid start. I do think that with this being Sunday Night Baseball, it is going to cause for a little bit of a diminishment with regards to the offenses on both sides as well, with it being a little bit later on, but I do think that the Braves are going to be able to get the job done. I do like the Godfather, and I do think that he might be the next of one of these great Atlanta Braves pitchers that we've seen them develop over the years. So I did set the Braves more around a minus 142 on the money line. Going to be willing to lay that with the total at 9, setting mine at 8.7. Also looking at the under 963, 964 on the betting board. It is the Detroit Tigers. They play host to the Boston Red Sox. Cutter Crawford is going to be going for the Sox, and Matthew Boyd is on the bump for Detroit. 8.5 is the total. Overs any between minus 115 and even money. The unders any between minus 120 and minus 105 with Boston. They are any between a minus 110 to a minus 118 favorite, and between minus 105 and plus 108 is your price on Detroit, with Matthew Boyd going for them. And with Boyd, you need at least a plus 113 to be able to dive in there. I set the Boston Red Sox at a minus 113, so seeing the minus 110, seeing a straight minus 112 out there, that's a max I'm willing to lay, but I'm willing to lay that small number with the Boston Red Sox. There's no question about it. This is one of the best offenses in the big leagues. Adam Duvall is finding that form that he had with the Cincinnati Reds. 4 home runs in 8 games already for him this season. You knew Alex Verdugo, Rafael Devers were going to move the line. I don't think that they're going to continue to hit north of a 340, but these guys do a good job of being able to find a way on base. Justin Turner has been a nice addition for this team. It's been a little bit hot and cold for Masataka Yoshida, but I like his addition as well. You've been noticing that Kike Hernandez has looked a little bit more like his normal self with regards to a pair of homers. Certainly has been struggling a little bit in terms of batting average, but has still been able to get on base. And for the Detroit Tigers, they just don't have that going for them. Jason Rogers has a pair of homers, but Spencer Torkelson is continuing to struggle. Riley Green does a good job of being able to reach base, but you've got a 100-million-year-old Miguel Cabrera that is currently showing his age. You've been able to get a few nice at-bats dating back to last year out of Kerry Carpenter, but this is one of the worst lineups in the big leagues, and the one saving grace that you had with the Tigers last year was that the bullpen was able to come in and they were able to do a rock-solid job. You had guys like a Michael Fulmer. You were able to rely upon Gregory Soto. Go down the list of guys that they lost in the offseason. Joey Jimenez was a big one. Andrew Chafin. So now you're really left with Alex Lang, who was okay last year with about a 3.69 ERA. Jose Cicerno is able to give you some good innings, but Jason Foley and company, they need to hold down the fort as Matthew Boyd is really making his second start in the last few seasons. It has been quite a while since he's been able to make starts. First start of the year, gives up 2 runs in 4 1/3 innings against the Houston Astros, which wasn't bad, but he does jack up his pitch count with all the walks. He does get quite a few strikeouts, but at the same time, he gives up a lot of hard contact as well. Dating back to the beginning of the 2020 season, he has been in the role of a starter, giving up north of 2 home runs per 9 innings. Now, the Boston Red Sox, they've got their issues with their bullpen as well. Caleb Ward is someone that you don't want to be relying upon, along with Zach Kelly, Richard Blyer, Ryan Brazier. These guys are awful. And Cutter Crawford showed some flashes of brilliance in July of last year. He has not been able to find it ever since then. 7 runs, 3 bombs, and 4 innings surrendered against the poopy Pittsburgh Pirates in his first start of the year. That's not necessarily so terrific, but good news is he is going up against the Detroit Tigers. Now, the ballpark out there in Detroit has a little bit of change around dimension, so it's a little bit more hitter-friendly, which is a big reason why I did set my total at 8.6. We've seen the Red Sox ripping the cover off the ball all series long. I do think that that's going to continue. I don't know if they get to 14 like they did yesterday, but I do like the over in the spot at an 8.5, and with the Red Sox, want to lay up to a minus 112 with them. I do think that they just flat out outslug the Detroit Tigers in a game that should be featuring quite a bit of offense. So looking at the over and looking at the Red Sox up to a minus 112, 965, 966 on the betting board. The Tampa Bay Rays play host to the Oakland A's. James Caprillion is going to be going for the A's, and Drew Rasmussen is on the bump for the Tampa Bay Rays. Rays are anywhere between minus 265 and minus 280 favorites. Between plus 225 and plus 245 is your number on the A's. Yankees. 7.5 is the total. Over and under anywhere between -105, -115. You're finding that run line of the Rays anywhere between -115 and -125. I think we're starting to get to a point of no return. It is impressive that the Rays are 8-0. They have been incredible to start the year, and the Oakland A's have not been so terrific to start the year, but I think that we have finally reached a buy point in this spot. I did need at least a plus 225 to dive in on the Oakland A's, but especially the plus 245 that I'm seeing at the Westgate, I'm going to be willing to dive in with James Kaprielian. Not a good start to the year. Gives up 5 runs over the course of 5 innings against the Cleveland Guardians, but I do think that he's going to be able to pick it up a little bit. We noticed him last year give up a right around 1.2 home runs per 9 innings, but he was very solid on the road. A 3.67 road ERA, giving up 0.9 home runs per 9 innings. Not much of a strikeout guy. He had right around 6 to 6.5 strikeouts per 9 innings last year, going up against someone in Drew Rasmussen who's been very steady as a starter. Not going to go out there and light the world on fire. Not a guy that is going to give you a whole bunch of strikeouts, as last year it was right in the pocket, about 8 strikeouts per 9 innings, but a 2.24 home ERA last season, giving up 5 home runs in 76 and a third innings. He's going to be able to do a functional job, but I do think that for the Tampa Bay Rays, they are going to come back to earth a little bit with regards to this offense. You've got Luke Raley, who's already given the team 3 home runs this season, and I'm going to list off all these guys, and they all have between 2 and 3 home runs. Raley, who I just mentioned, Wander Franco, Randy Arozarena. No surprise there. Yandy Diaz is relatively solid. Isaac Paredes, he's able to go deep. Harold Ramirez, Jose Siri. I don't think that you're going to get 18 home runs every 8 games like we've seen out of the Tampa Bay Rays thus far this season, but has been impressive to watch. Franco and Arozarena both hitting above a 350 right now. Isaac Paredes, Jose Siri, Taylor Walls, they've all been able to hit above a 300 along Josh Lowe. Some of these guys are just performing above their skis a little bit if you take a look in relation to last year. Now, what is going to be long-lasting for the Rays is their good bullpen pitching, as Pete Fairbanks, Jason Adam, Ryan Thompson, all these guys are relatively rock solid, and I do think that they're going to be able to show their might once again. But for the Oakland A's, when you're able to get into the trustworthy guys in the bullpen, guys like Danny Jimenez, Domingo Acevedo, even Sam Maul, all these guys were able to do a very nice job last year. All these guys had a sub 3.4 ERA, and I do think that they're going to be able to come in, hold down the fort. I do think that James Kaprielian gives the Oakland A's a shot of taking down the undefeated Tampa Bay Rays. I did set my total here at an 8.2. I do think that there's going to be some runs produced by the Tampa Bay Rays. I do think that this offense is really finding its form, and James Kaprielian, he is going to give up a few walks, so I do think that there's going to be runs to be had, but I do think that the Oakland A's going to be able to get a little bit of offense of their own going. As for the Oakland A's, they were shut out yesterday, but you do have Seth Brown, who was able to hit 25 home runs last season. Ramon Laureano being healthy, that's big, as he's been able to hit about a 240 along Shea Langolaris. Jesus Aguilar is someone that has spent a lot of time in the great state of Florida. He's been able to do a good job moving the line. He's been hitting about a 250 to begin the season. Very good at being able to just pound in their RBIs. You've been able to get a pair of homers out of Ryan Noda as well. So I do think that the A's lineup a little bit improved from last season. I do think that they're going to be able to scratch off a few runs from Rasmussen to give themselves a shot in this game. Being able to get north of a plus 225, I'm going to be riding with the Oakland A's in this spot. I did set my total at an 8.2, so here at a 7.5, looking at the over and looking at the Oakland A's getting a massive plus price. Now we have my DK Nation write-up pick, 967, 968 on the betting board. The Baltimore Orioles play host to the New York Yankees. Nestor Cortez is going to be going for the Yankees, and Tyler Wells hopes to pitch Wells for the Orioles. It is your total over and under, both at minus 110. With the Yankees, you're finding them between minus 145, minus 152, anywhere between plus 126 and plus 137 is your number on the Baltimore Orioles. It's at the Yankees minus 168 on the money line, but I would need a little bit more of a plus price to be able to take a shot on the run line. I'm going to be willing to take a little bit of a chalkier money line just because with the Baltimore Orioles, they were the best run line team in all of baseball last season. It is a very pesky bunch, so I would rather play it safe here. And heck, if you're able to get less than a minus 115 on the juice in terms of an Orioles run line, right now I am finding it in a lot of places right around a minus 125, so we would need to shrink that. But if you would be able to get something like that, I would actually be inclined to take a run and a half with the Baltimore Orioles, but as I see it right now, minus 145, I'm going to be willing to lay with the New York Yankees, as Nestor Cortez has been able to do a very solid job with the New York Yankees since becoming a starter, but you have noticed that his home and road splits are a little bit demonstrative. At home last season, he did a great job of keeping the ball in yard. .95 ERA, 5 home runs allowed in 87 and a third innings. His strikeouts per 9 rate a little bit north of 9, with opponents hitting a .89 off of him. On the road, he was giving up more like 1.4 home runs per 9 innings, and that 195 home ERA jumped to a 306. Meanwhile, you've got someone in Tyler Wells who's been absolutely atrocious at home throughout his career. He's got a road ERA that is sub 3, more of a 5.45 home ERA. last season at home, he was giving up a little bit north of 1.5 home runs per 9 innings. That has really been the Tyler Wells story. And for the Baltimore Orioles, the fact that they were 9th in the league in bullpen ERA last year is a little bit misleading. After the All-Star break that rose to 18th, they entered into yesterday's game with a 4.20 bullpen ERA. This bullpen has not necessarily been the same since the beginning part of last season. You've got someone like Brian Baker that's able to do a relatively okay job of holding down the fort along Cionel Perez, but it's very clear that these guys pitch above their skis last season. I do think that Felix Bautista is the real deal at the closer spot, but losing Jorge Lopez at the trade deadline last season I thought was very big for the team. Now you're having to rely upon guys like Logan Gillespie, Keegan Aiken. He has fallen off after he had a very nice year last year, but what has picked up for the Baltimore Orioles is their hitting, as they were averaging about 5.8 runs per game entering into their game yesterday. Ryan Mountcastle 2 years ago hit 30-plus homers. Anthony Santander last season had 30-plus home runs. And you've got a team that does a good job of being able to play small ball, as one of the best base stealers in all of the MLB last year was Jorge Mateo. He already had 5 stolen bases going into yesterday. Cedric Mullins had 4 stolen bases going into yesterday. This is a team that really benefited from the rules changes with regards to their offense. Meanwhile, for the New York Yankees, they led the league in runs and home runs last season, and you've got to believe that Aaron Judge is going to be hungry for more. He was entering into yesterday with 2 home runs, someone that was able to hit north of a 300 last year as well. There was a chance that he could win the Triple Crown a season ago. Giancarlo Stanton looks like he's getting back to form, as he's hitting nearly a 300 with 3 home runs to begin the season. Gleyber Torres has been on a tear at the plate. Now, you've got Aaron Hicks, who's not necessarily so great, just has not been able to find it, and I know the Yankees fans do not like him very much, but when you've got Jose Trevino behind the dish, he's able to do a solid job at the plate as well. And for the New York Yankees, they've overall been relatively solid with their bullpen. I do have some question marks in there. Ron Mananacchio, Wandy Peralta, these guys are terrific, but Clay Holmes has not looked like himself since the first half of last season. It is a bullpen that also has Jimmy Cordero, which I'm a little bit uneasy about that as well with the New York Yankees. They did change around things a little bit to give Nestor Cortez an extra day of rest, and they utilized Michael King for multiple innings, so they're going to be relatively rested there. But with Cole Irvin being unable to give 5, that does mean that the Orioles are a little bit more depleted with their bullpen as well. I do think that both of these teams are going to be able to do a good job of being able to put bat to ball. Nestor Cortez has struggled on the road. Tyler Wells has struggled at home. I think that this is all the makings of a nice high-scoring game. I did set my total at an 8.8, and that is going to be the write-up. I am writing up the over in this ordeal. I do think that the Yankees are going to be able to get things going, and I do think that this has a chance to be a little bit more of a nip-and-tuck game, so I would rather take a bit more of a chalky money line rather than getting just a plus 105 on the run line of the Yankees. Going to be looking at the Yankees money line on current numbers with regards to the side, and for the write-up, I'm going to be writing up this total over 969, 970 on the betting board. It is the Cleveland Guardians playing goes to the Seattle Mariners. George Kirby is going to be going for Seattle, and Zach Plesac is on the bump for Cleveland, and Cleveland is an underdog of anywhere between even money, seeing as good as a plus 110. Meanwhile, with Seattle, you're getting them between minus 110 and minus 120. 8 is the total. Unders anywhere between even and minus 120, and same goes for the over. So shop around for your juice, as it's varying by 20 cents as of right now. But with the Mariners, set them as a minus 122 favorite. So all numbers currently up on the money line are in range for me. I'm going to be willing to ride with the Seattle Mariners in this ordeal. We were talking about it with our good friend Curtis Rogers, and with Seattle, I do think that they've got a clear pitching advantage with George Kirby on the mound. Kirby did get shelled in his first start of the year, giving up 4 runs over the course of 4 1/3 innings, but I do take a look at Kirby, and he was able to perform quite well on the road last year. 3.28 home ERA, 3.53 road ERA, giving up 4 home runs and 58 and 2/3 innings away from home. And what was really impressive about George Kirby last year was the just futility of walks that he gave up, about 1.7 to 1.8 walks per 9 innings. Zach Plesac, very much a command guy as well, but he just gives up too much contact in general. He gave up 6 runs in 1 inning against the Oakland A's to start out the year. That is just not the way that you want to be going about things now. He was significantly better at home than on the road last season. 3.66 home ERA, 4.83 ERA on the road, giving up about 1.3 home runs per 9 innings at home, but swing and miss stuff just is not there with him. About 6.5 punch-outs per 9 innings a season ago. And this Seattle Mariners team, they just have a knack for being able to pull out 1-run wins because this bullpen has been so good. They do lose Eric Swanson from last year, but guys like Penn Murphy, Andres Munoz, throw in there Matt Brash, they've been able to do a nice job in the bullpen, coupled with Paul Sewald for Seattle. I do like the way that they address the lineup in the offseason, bringing in a guy that's able to move the line in Teoscar Hernandez, and someone who also had 57 home runs last 2 seasons. AJ Pollock already has a pair of bombs for the team, and then you got Eugenio Suarez, Ty France, along with Julio Rodriguez, starting out the year all hitting at least a 300 at the top. It is a little bit of a top-heavy lineup, as was mentioned by Curtis Rogers, but at the very least, they do have those top-end bats. Meanwhile, the Cleveland Guardians, they had the second fewest home runs in the big leagues last season. You got Josh Naylor sitting here with a pair of homers, but 5 home runs through 9 games thus far this season. That's not necessarily so delightful for this team, as you do have guys who are able to get on base. Steven Kwan, Andres Jimenez, Oscar Gonzalez, Jose Ramirez, Ahmed Rosario. You've got a lot of guys that hit at least a 270 last season. Will Brennan, you're able to throw him in there as well, but really other than Ramirez, who had 123 RBI and he had 29 home runs, you didn't get a lot of pop out of this lineup. And for the Cleveland Guardians, they really hang their hat on their pitching in the bullpen. James Karinchak has not necessarily been himself to begin the season. As a matter of fact, against the Seattle Mariners on opening day, gave up that big home run that allowed them to get that win. Still a solid bullpen though. Manuel Clase, Aniel de los Santos, you know what you're going to be able to get out of them. Trevor Seaven, Nick Sandlin, they're able to do a nice job of stemming the tide, but I just think that Zach Plesac not going to be able to give a great start in this ordeal. I think that George Kirby is going to be able to out-duel him, and I do think that the Mariners are going to be able to get to the Guardians in this ordeal, and I do think that the Guardians are going to play a little bit of small ball on a guy in Kirby that gets quite a few strikeouts, but at the same time, because he doesn't give out a lot of walks, he's going to be in the zone quite a bit for Cleveland to be able to get those base hits, scratch across a few runs playing station-to-station baseball. So semi-total at 8.1, you're at an 8 looking at the over, and with Seattle willing to lay up to minus 121 with them. 971, 972 on the betting board. The Houston Astros at the road face off against the Minnesota Twins. Tyler Mahle is going to be going for the Twins. Hunter Brown is on the bump for Houston. 8 is the total, over and under, both at minus 110. With Houston, they are anywhere between a minus 110 to a minus 120 favorite. Meanwhile, with Minnesota, it's anywhere between even money and plus 105. And for Houston, I did set them as a plus 104 underdog. I am going to be willing to take the Minnesota Twins at essentially even money / a plus price. We saw my BK Nation write-up unfortunately go down with the Houston Astros yesterday, and I think that it could become 3-7. Hunter Brown is someone that I think has a lot of upside, but first start of the season looked a little bit shaky, giving up 4 runs in 4 2/3 innings, 3 walks. He does have good swing and miss stuff, but I was talking with Patrick Creighton over at ESPN 97.5 in Houston, and he did note that Hunter Brown, you take a look at his minor league numbers, and he's always had a little bit of an issue with command. And for the Minnesota Twins, this team doesn't necessarily have a bunch of mashers. Joey Gallo has been able to give you 3 home runs to begin the season, but this is not a team that's going to be going out there and leading the league in home runs or anything like that, unlike a few years ago, but they've got guys that do a good job of being able to reach base. Kyle Farmer had that big 3 home run yesterday, but more or less a guy that just moves the line, hitting a 350. Donovan Solano's hitting above a 350. Byron Buxton, he had a bunch of home runs last year, but I feel like he's at his best when he's just able to get on for his team. Getting those home runs, it is nice, but at the same time, hitting a 333, being able to provide a little bit of havoc on the base paths, I think is very beneficial for this team. Trevor Larnach has done a solid job there, and for the Minnesota Twins, their bullpen has been very stout to begin the season. Yohan Duran, I think, is one of the most underrated relievers in all baseball. They pick up Jorge Lopez, who was very good with the Orioles last season. You've got Simon and Giovanni Morin, who I like. Jorge Alcala missed much of last season, but I liked him in the bullpen. And for the Astros, they had the top bullpen ERA in the big leagues last season, but they had to burn up quite a bit of the pen yesterday with Luis Garcia not giving such a savory start. And we're noticing that a lot of these guys that were terrific last year, like a Ryan Stanek, starting to regress, as Ryan Stanek last year, a .25 ERA, north of a 6 thus far this season. Now, Brian Abreu has been relatively solid, but Seth Martinez pitched above his skis last season. He's up to a 9 ERA this season, no doubt about it. These guys are going to be rebounding from having like a 9 ERA, but for Houston, they had a lot of guys in that bullpen have career years. I do think that they're going to be coming back down to earth a little bit. Now, with Minnesota, most likely going to be without Joey Gallo once again in this game, but that said, they are going to be with Tyler Mahle, and I do think that Mahle is just going to be rock solid now that he's away from Cincinnati, because we always saw with his home and road splits, when he was in Cincinnati, you just couldn't find it. You go back to 2021 when he was fully healthy, 230 road ERA, 563 home ERA, giving up 5 home runs in 1 2/3 of an inning when he was away from home. 19 bombs in 78 and a third innings when he was in Cincinnati. That ballpark just was not built for him. Minnesota, much more of a pitcher-friendly ballpark out in the middle of April in the Midwest. Temperatures are not going to be very high, so that'll help him out in being able to keep the ball in the yard. I do think that the Twins should be the favorite in this spot, so being able to get them between even money and a little bit of plus price, I'm going to be taking them on the money line. Did set my total at an 8.3 as well. I do think that the Astros, even without having Jose Altuve, they're still going to be solid with their lineup. You still have quite a few guys that are able to move the line, picking up Jose Abreu, someone who just consistently gets 100 plus RBI. That was a nice addition. Yordan Alvarez had that grand slam yesterday. He and Kyle Tucker both have 3 home runs apiece. I like what I've seen out of the young guy in David Hensley, the way that he's been able to have his approach at the plate. You know that Alex Bregman is going to be able to get it going sooner rather than later. He just is always a notoriously slow starter, but someone like Martin Maldonado, Mauricio Dubon at the bottom of the fold, they are a little bit of dead bats, but I think that the Astros may get a little bit of offense going. Set my total at 8.3, so I'm going to be looking at the over, but with the Twins, I feel like they should be the favorite. Looking at the Twins, right on the money line to go along with this 8 over. 973, 974 on the betting board. The LA Angels, they play us the Toronto Blue Jays. Yusei Kikuchi is going to be going for the Jays, and Reed Detmers is on the bump for the Angels. Angels between minus 115 and minus 125 favorites, anywhere between plus 105 and plus 110 is your number on Toronto. 9.5 to 9 is your total on the 9. Overs minus 120. The unders even on the 9.5. Unders anywhere between minus 110 and minus 120. The overs between even and minus 110. With the Angels, made them a minus 141 favorite. I'm going to be willing to lay the number now. I will say this about Yusei Kikuchi. After his no good, very bad, terrible year last year, he looked significantly better in spring training this year. He's actually been reducing the amount of strikeouts, which I think is good for him because as his strikeout numbers have went up, his ERA has also went up. We noticed that last year, his strikeouts per 9 rate a season ago was actually very good. It was well north of 10, but he got completely lit up for a 5.19 ERA because as he was getting more strikeouts, he was also giving up more walks. So getting back to basics might be good for him, as Kikuchi last season gave up right around 1.6 home runs per 9 innings with a 5.91 ERA when he was on the road. Meanwhile, for Reed Detmers, that no-hitter, it was very good for him, but at the same time, it did give him probably a little bit more time than he needed at the big leagues because he needed to go back down. He needed to work on his mechanics. After he went down to the minor leagues after struggling post no-hitter, he came back up and he looked like a completely different pitcher. He has been able to do a better job throughout his career at home rather than on the road. Last year, he had about a 4.47 road ERA. His ERA at home was more in the neighborhood of about a 3.22. So I do think that he's going to be able to do a nice job in this ordeal with Reed Detmers as well. You notice that the swing and miss stuff after he went down to the minor leagues, that was significantly improved as well. In that no-hitter, I believe that he had just 2 strikeouts when he was able to resurface in the minor leagues. You just take a look from the month of July on, he was really on it as he was able to get more around 10 strikeouts per 9 innings. His ERA after the month of July, it was a 3.04. Last 13 starts of the year, gave up 2 home runs over the course of 71 innings. Prior to that, he was posting up a 4.66 ERA, which included that no-hitter along the way, as he had given up 4 home runs in his previous 2 starts prior to the month of July. As a matter of fact, he gave up 11 home runs in his first 12 starts of the year. So he has really improved as a pitcher. Now, the bullpen behind him, I can tell you from watching this team in person, not good. Matt Moore, he had a sub-2 ERA with the Rangers last year. I want to see it to believe it from him moving forward. Carlos Estevez, I recognize it was at Coors Field, but he has never necessarily been the world's greatest pitcher out of the bullpen. Andrew Wentz, he's okay, but Ryan Tepera, a little bit of a roll of the dice there. We saw Jimmy Harrigan in that game against the Toronto Blue Jays on Friday give up that home run to Bo Bichette, and this is a very potent Blue Jays lineup. Bo Bichette, he already has a pair of homers, including a big one on Friday. You've got Matt Chapman, who has really been on fire. He's hitting north of a 400 right now. That is going to regress. Matt Chapman is one of the most hot and cold hitters that you're going to find in the big leagues. George Springer does a good job of moving the line. He hits for average, and he's able to give you a little bit of power. Alejandro Kirk has been a little bit slow out of the box, but that said, with Alejandro Kirk last year, he was hitting more around a 285 with a 372 on base. I know that he's going to be able to pick it up. Brandon Belt, very rough start to the year for him. I do think that he's going to improve as well. Last time he had a not completely injury-riddled season, as during the 2022 campaign, just 78 games. 2 seasons ago in 97 games, he did hit 29 home runs. So he's got that potential there. And for the LA Angels, Shohei Ohtani, Mike Trout, these are 2 of the best hitters in all of baseball. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And then Taylor Ward at the top. This guy was absolutely incredible last season as he was able to hit about a 280. He supplied 23 home runs. He looks even better this year as last year. He had sort of that lull in the middle of the year. But Anthony Rendon back in the fold. I know that he's a highly paid player, but not too terrific. Gio Urshela, he's good with the glove. He's good at being able to reach base. Not necessarily much of a home run hitter, but guys like Luis Renifo, the whole catcher spot for this team. Ryan O'Hoppe, I think, has a little bit of upside, but he's going to take a year or 2 for him to be able to develop. It's a little bit rough at the bottom, so there's going to be a lot of cases where I do think that the Angels are going to stray men on base, but I do think that they should be able to take it to Yusei Kikuchi in this ordeal. And for the Blue Jays, I do think that the bullpen is going to be able to help out with a 9.5 under, because this Blue Jays bullpen picks up Eric Swanson, who has a sub-2 ERA with the Seattle Mariners last season. You've got a pair of guys in Anthony Bass, Yimi Garcia, who have done a nice job of holding things down. I do think that Jordan Romano might be the most underrated closer in the big leagues as well, and we know that the Blue Jays are able to put bat to ball, but I do think that Detmers is going to be able to hold them down in this spot. Did set my total at a 9.2, getting mostly 9.5s on the board. I'm going to be looking at the under, and with the Angels, want to lay up to a minus 140 with them. 975, 976 on the betting board. The Chicago White Sox in third face-off against the Pittsburgh Pirates, as you've got Johan Oviedo, who's going to be going for the Buccos, and Michael Kopech is on the bump for the White Sox. White Sox between minus 115 and minus 120 favorites, between plus 105, seeing a straight even money, and plus 110 is your number on Pittsburgh. 8.5 to 9 is your total on the 9. Unders minus 120, the overs even on the 8.5. Overs between minus 115 and minus 120, the unders any between even and minus 105. And for the White Sox, did set them as a minus 132 on the money line. Michael Kopech got completely shelled in his first start of the year. He gave up 5 home runs and 4 2/3 innings, so he's got a home runs per 9 rate this year, north of 9. That's not too terrific. I do think that he's going to be able to pick it up. You could tell that the injury last season after he suffered that, he wasn't necessarily the same pitcher, but this is also a guy, Michael Kopech, that I think that he's going to be able to pick up his swing and miss stuff. He only got right around 8 strikeouts per 9 innings. He was always known coming up through the minor leagues as being very much a hard thrower, and he is someone that was a little bit fortunate towards the beginning part of the year last year, was a little bit unfortunate late. So I do feel like the .98 batting average that he allowed last season, that's a little bit of fool's gold. He does need to work on the north of 4 walks per 9 innings, but I do think that he's going to be getting more swings and misses this year. Meanwhile, for Johan Oviedo, just a mixed bag for him, as his first start of the year was far from terrific. 5 runs, 4 of which were earned in 4 2/3 innings. Last season, he was able to see a few starts with the Pittsburgh Pirates, and he was able to make the most out of those starts, as he really is a okay swing and miss guy. Not necessarily great, not necessarily terrible, but you take a look at what he was able to do in the month of September, really becoming a full-time starter with the Pittsburgh Pirates, and his ERA in the month was about a 3.04. He was able to do a nice job of being able to keep the ball in the yard, giving up 1 home run as a starter after he was acquired by the Pittsburgh Pirates, but I do think that there's going to be some negative regression, and that was shown through in his first start of the year, giving up 3 home runs against Boston Red Sox. Now, it is the Boston Red Sox, but I do think that the Chicago White Sox should be able to have some success. Now, they always have a little bit of a tougher time against right-hand pitching rather than left-hand pitching, but the Chicago White Sox team has currently Tim Anderson, Luis Robert, along with Yoel Moncada, only above 325. You've been able to have Andrew Benintendi come into the fold. He had a 300 last season. Elvis Andrus has been a little bit slow out of the box, and Eloy Jimenez has just been dealing with injuries once again. Shock, surprise, surprise. But with Robert being able to have 4 home runs, looks like he could be poised for his best year ever. Meanwhile, you've got a Pittsburgh Pirates team that has Brian Reynolds, who entered into yesterday, cranking out 5 home runs in the first 7 games of the season. That's absolutely ridiculous. Hitting a 448. Andrew McCutchen has been able to do a nice job moving the line, hitting at 300. I do think that he's going to fall off as the season goes along, though. He's a little bit long in the tooth. Oniel Cruz, he's got potential to be a really good home run hitter. He's also got the potential to be potentially about a 200 strikeout guy as well. And then you've got someone like Jack Swazinski. He's got power, but he swings and misses just way too much, as the Pittsburgh Pirates in general are a team that's going to rack up the strikeouts, and it's a bullpen that you can't necessarily feel too good about. David Bednar along Chase Young, both of these guys had a sub 3.5 ERA last year, and Colin Holderman wasn't bad with the New York Mets, but I think that he is a guy that is doing for a little bit of negative regression this year, and we saw that when he came over with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Don't have a lot of faith in guys like Rob Zanarski, Dori Moreta, Dwayne Underwood Jr. Meanwhile, for the White Sox, Liam Hendricks, him being out of the fold, that does hurt this team, but at the same time, you do have guys like a Kendall Graveman, Aaron Bummer, guys that have been proven to be able to get the job done. Jimmy Lambert is someone that I do like. Now, Joe Kelly is someone that you want absolutely no part of whatsoever, but we saw the White Sox really put a hurting on the Pittsburgh Pirates yesterday. Both of these offenses were able to get it going. Both of these pitching staffs in general have had a little bit of a rough go. I'm seeing 1 straight 9 out there, but I'm mostly seeing 8.5. Set my total at 8.6 here at the 8.5. I'm going to be willing to go over. I think that Kopech gives up some runs. I think that Oviedo is going to be giving up quite a bit of hard contact this year, and I do think that the White Sox outslug the Pirates. Set the White Sox at a minus 132, so I'm going to be taking the Sox on the money line and taking a look at the 8.5 over. 977, 978 on the betting board. The Texas Rangers hit the road face-off against the Chicago Cubs as Jameson Taillon goes for the Cubs, and 55 Shades of John Gray is on the bump for the Rangers. Currently, only Circa has a number up on the total. Most places are going to hold off until the AM to the Wrigley Field win, but currently seeing a Circa total of 8.5, unders minus 120, and the overs even with the Cubs. They are slight favorites of anywhere between minus 107 and minus 110. Anywhere between even money and minus 110 is your number on the Texas Rangers, and I did set the Cubs as a minus 117 favorite. I'm going to be willing to lay it, and as of right now, I am seeing that the wind is going to be blowing out for tomorrow. It's not going to be like super duper heavy winds for Sunday, but I'm noticing that it's going to be right around about 8 or so mile per hour winds, so that is going to be able to help out the bats. And I did set my total at 9.3 as a result. I feel like they really lowballed the total yesterday, and we did see the Chicago Cubs being able to put up some nice runs, be able to help out with that regard, and that was an over that was able to come through, and I think that we might have another one here, considering we're right now seeing an 8.5 with juice on the under in this spot. Now, with John Gray, he was able to do a very good job last season of being able to just get away from Coors Field and proving that, you know what, some of his struggles, it was because, well, he faced off against opponents in the great state of Colorado, where it's very, very hard to pitch. John Gray does give up quite a bit of hard contact. He did give up 1.35 home runs per 9 innings last season, but his strikeouts per 9 rate was right around 9.5. And he's backed up by an okay bullpen. I'm not going to call it a great bullpen, but Jonathan Hernandez, Brock Burke had a sub-3 ERA last season. Jose Leclerc, he was able to provide an ERA that was hovering right around a 3 as well. And then when it comes to the Chicago Cubs team, you bring in Michael Fulmer. You also bring in Brad Boxberger to be able to shore up the bullpen past that. Don't have a lot of trustworthy guys. Keegan Thompson is a little bit more of a long guy, and you don't want to be having to go there because James Zion, he's supposed to be one of your horses, and his first start of the year against the Milwaukee Brewers was far from great, giving up 3 runs over the course of 4 innings, 7 hits in total, and it's a lot of the struggles that he did have with the New York Yankees last season. With the Yankees, he was amazing with his command, right around 1.6 walks per 9 innings. He was getting only about 7.2 strikeouts per 9 innings as a result. Ball was in play quite a bit, gave up 1.3 home runs per 9 innings with the wind blowing out. That's going to be an issue for both he and John Gray, and both of these lineups are pretty formidable. With the Rangers, they spent big money on Marcus Semien, coupled with Corey Seager last offseason. Both of these guys have not necessarily been off to super hot starts yet, but I do think that they're going to be able to pick it up. Josh Young, very highly touted prospect for the team. He's been able to about a 270. He's been able to supply a pair of homers. Mitch Garver has been able to do a good job of moving the line, and this is a Texas Rangers team that they're doing a nice job of getting hits with men in scoring position. Meanwhile, for the Chicago Cubs, you've got guys that are able to do a nice job of reaching base, like a Nico Horner. When Nick Madrigal gets at bats, he's someone I think is very underrated. He's able to do so as well, but he signed in the offseason Dansby Swanson. No home runs to show for it right now, but you know what? When you're hitting north of 400, very small sample size, but when you're hitting north of 400, that'll make up for it. Patrick Wisdom seems to be striking out a little bit less this year. He's been able to provide a trio of homers. Eric Hosmer, I recognize that he was badly overpaid with the Padres, but he's still a relatively functional bat. I do think that both of these teams have solid offenses with both of these bullpens. You've got some trustworthy guys, but you, by and large, don't necessarily have the widest core of guys, and both of these guys in Tyon and Gray, they are prone to giving up a little bit of hard contact. So I set my total a little bit north of 9. Going to be taking a look at the over. I do think that the Cubs get it done in this spot at home, set them as a minus 117 favorite. So looking at the Cubs money line and the over, where I things up with 979, 980 on the betting board. The Kansas City Royals set the road face off against the San Francisco Giants. Anthony DeSclafani is going to be going for the Giants, and Chris with the K, Bubich is on the bump for the Royals. 8.5 is the total, over and under anywhere between minus 105, minus 115. With the Giants, you're getting them in between minus 152 and minus 170, anywhere between plus 140 and plus 145 is your number on Kansas City. Set the Giants minus 181 on the money line. If you're looking at the run line, you're getting it between a plus 115 to a plus 125. Going to bypass the money line, and I'm going to be taking a look at the run line as got a Kansas City Royals team that they got past the 4-run plateau for the second time this season in the game yesterday. Yay, verily there, but I've got massive question marks with regards to the Royals, as you do have a trio of guys that have a pair of home runs in Bobby Witt Jr., Salvador Perez, along with Franmil Reyes, but not a lot of power with this team outside of Perez, who was able to hit 48 home runs 2 seasons ago, was able to hit 275, but you just take a look at these guys. Bobby Witt Jr., I think that he's going to be able to pick it up, but he, Michael Massey, Hunter Dozier, Kyle Isabel, Franmil Reyes, who I mentioned before, MJ Melendez, all hitting below a $185. Vinny Pasquantino has had a little bit of a rough go of it to begin the year as well. And for the San Francisco Giants, they do such a good job with their platooning splits. You don't necessarily have a ton of guys that move the line. Therio Estrada is the main guy for that. Hitting above a 400 thus far this season, that is going to come down, but I think that he could hit well north of a 275. Jock Peterson is one of your main matchers in terms of being able to crank out homers along with Mike Yastrzemski, but you just take a look at the overall balance they have with the San Francisco Giants. They've already got 15 home runs this year with Yastrzemski, Peterson, J.D. Davis, Michael Conforto, and David Villar, all giving you at least 2 home runs. I don't think that you're going to get a single guy for the San Francisco Giants that's going to give you really north of like 25 to 30 homers, but you're going to end up with a lot of guys hovering in like that 15 to 22 range. Gabe Kapler does a really good job with those platooning splits, and this team does a good job of being able to draw walks. They've been averaging right around 5 walks per game to begin the season. That is something that stands out to me. Now with the Giants, bullpen can be a little bit shaky. Camilo Udval is someone I like. He provided sub-3 ERA last year, as did Scott Alexander. Alexander, big thing for him, just being able to stay healthy. For Taylor Rogers, he was actually a relatively trustworthy guy while he was with the Minnesota Twins. Big fall off last season. His brother Tyler Rogers, he's a little bit all over the place as well, but I do think that you've got an okay, not great, not terrible bullpen with them. And for the Kansas City Royals, they do pick up Aroldis Chapman. He and Scott Barlow are able to do a okay job for this bullpen, and I do like the way that Taylor Clark has come along as a reliever as well. He was a failure of a starter, but last season when they put him in the bullpen, he was actually able to do some very nice things for this Kansas City Royals team, so that is going to be massive. But I just think that with the Kansas City Royals trying to hit out in a very pitcher-friendly ballpark in San Francisco, it's not necessarily warm anytime during the year, but especially right now, that is going to be a little bit of an issue for them. And I really like what I saw from Anthony DeSclafani in his first start of the season, as he went 6 scoreless innings. He was all sorts of banged up last season, so I really just tossed that to the side. During the 2021 campaign, though, he was able to do a great job of being able to just limit the walks with about 2.3 walks per 9 innings. He gave up just a tad over a home run per 9 innings at home. 4 bombs in 72 2/3 innings. This ballpark really suits him well. I do think that he's going to do a nice job of shutting down, in my opinion, one of the lesser lineups out there in the big leagues. And part of the reason why I did set this total at 7.5 as well is I do think that Chris with the K Bubich is going to be able to do a little bit of a better job this year as well. He gave up 2 runs over the course of 5 innings in his first start. Now, he did give up 7 hits as well. That's not necessarily too terrific, but he actually had a little bit of a better road ERA than a home ERA last season. He certainly has been prone to giving up the deep ball, right around 1.5 home runs per 9 innings, and he does need to work on the walks, 4.5 walks per 9 innings, but I do think that he's going to be able to develop, and I do think that the Royals bullpen going to do an okay job against the San Francisco Giants at a pitcher-friendly ballpark. I just flat out think that the Royals aren't going to be able to provide any offense. I total at 7.5, so here at 8.5, looking at the under and looking at the Giants on the run lines, I do think that they do enough to get to Bubich to be able to win by multiple runs, and that will wrap things up for the Sunday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. A big thanks to Curtis Rogers over there at 710 Seattle Sports, does Seattle Mariners pre- and post-game work. He joined me in the last segment. If you do like what you're hearing from this fine podcast, the Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, whatever you for this podcast, you have one of 2 ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at Jane_D1. Keep in mind, letters AM. The me does not matter as per usual. Please do send these into the timeline. The other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Going to be coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season. That means I'm coming at you once again tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in.